Hello and welcome to Voices of the Vic podcast with me, Ben Aiton. This week I am here with Tom from the Golden Pages and Joe Thomas, who's a Watford FC supporter as well. Mike unfortunately had to pull out today. He was due to record with us, but unfortunately he's had to pull out. He had a heavy night out in Birmingham last night, believe it or not. He was sick this morning as well. He tells me it's nothing to do with the alcohol and it's a dodgy pizza that he's eaten. So believe what you want with that. I think it's the alcohol, but he's adamant that he's never sick after drinking. So yeah, I think you're just getting a little bit old now, Mike. But yeah, we'll leave it there. But yeah, I've got two reliable people with me. I've got Tom and Joe with me. Tom, firstly, how are you doing? I know you went yesterday, so you're going to use tonight as more of a therapy session, really. But how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm all right. Yeah, as you said, it's. I'm going to take this as an opportunity to cleanse my soul. I think after yesterday, yeah, it wasn't great. I'll be honest, as you know, everyone watching will attest to. But you know, having made the journey and paying for the mandated coach and everything, it kind of didn't make it very pleasant. But yeah, I've had a bit of time to mull over, so let's move with it.
And how are you doing, Joe? You all good?
Yes, mate. Yeah, all good. Yeah, like Tom says, it's been a blow after yesterday, isn't it? I think we're all going to be a bit raw for quite a while. And like I say, I know from seeing people yesterday, there's a lot of people that were upset, like myself and Tom, and I know you will be as well, Ben. So yeah.
Yeah, no, definitely. It was a bit of pill to swallow yesterday. I think we all went into a game expecting us to maybe not get a result, but we've been here this season as well, where we took a hiding away at Millwall at the start of the season, and then we thought, we've got Luton next, it's going to be a tough game. But we actually turned up and performed really well that day and got the result. And there was a little part of me thinking, can we get something this weekend? We wasn't great last weekend, but can the boys react? But we couldn't this time. And the performance, Tom, let's dive straight into it. The performance yesterday that was delivered by the boys was pathetic. There's so many words we could use: gutless, spineless. There was no effort put in at all. We was beaten by the better team, and it pains us to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a few aggravating factors that makes this a more bitter to swallow. You've got the fact that it's obviously a derby. There's there's there should be an added incentive there. Ben, I'm not sure where he's disappeared. He's still there, yeah. Yeah, I think in isolation we probably accept that as a sort of one-off game. But as I said, it's a derby. You've got the added, there's so much added pressure with that comes with that, and the added expectation. And it was just awful. That the minimum you expect in particularly a derby is that extra 1-2%, that you would get, but it just wasn't that. And the most galling thing to take from yesterday is that Luton just simply wanted it more, and that's really hard to take as a football fan to see in the derby. I'll be quoting Chris Wilder a lot tonight, but one of the quotes from his press conference, which I think summed it up, is that you have to have heart at any level if you want to succeed. And for me, it was just completely missing yesterday.
Yeah, Joe, how did you feel yesterday after yesterday's performance? Again, with Tom, you attended the game as well. I know it's not round the corner from you. You travelled up from Portsmouth, had to go to Vicarage Road to pick up the coach tickets as well. And what was it like yesterday?
Do you know what I thought actually for the first, I don't know if you thought this as well, Tom, but I thought for the first 5 minutes when they started passing the ball around, I thought we actually kept a bit of a shape. You could see that there was something there that they were wanting to do from the start. But then just all of a sudden, something changed and we were all of a sudden just started giving the ball away. All those second balls, we weren't getting to the second ball. It was like pinball a lot of the time in midfield yesterday. When the ball was going loose, Luton players were picking it up. There didn't seem to be much communication between Louza, Chowdhury and Kone yesterday. I thought, I'm a big fan of Kone. I thought that was his worst performance in a Watford shirt yesterday. I was really disappointed with him, especially after Wigan last week, I thought that was his best performance. I thought in a Watford shirt, he was running the show, he was passing the ball around really well. And yeah, just everything that, although we didn't get the result against Wigan, I thought we performed, the performance was fantastic. I thought we were just unlucky. We just didn't put the ball in the net. We hit the woodwork a couple of times, obviously, then. But yesterday, just a completely different team, I thought. And it was really, really disappointing. Like you say, the effort wasn't there. And it was, when they were warming up, the players walked across us as they were going back into the tunnel. And they looked at the fans, and every single one of them looked in their eyes. They looked up for it, and you could see that they wanted it at that point. But it didn't. The performance just didn't come about on the pitch when it came to it, and then it's just hard to take. I think it's going to take a long time to get over that one yesterday.
Yeah, Derby Day defeats are the worst, aren't they? Especially when they're 12 points above you in the table now. They're going to be in the playoffs at the end of the season. And Watford, we're not going to make it, are we? I think Chris Wilder said we'll be lucky if we get mid-table with the performance yesterday and off late as well, because he's came in, that's his second defeat as a Watford manager. 1 win, 1 draw, 2 defeats now. We can't really keep blaming the managers, can we? We were on the 3rd manager this season. Okay, we're going to talk to it a bit later about the culture at the football club. But the players, Tom, they've got to take responsibility, don't they?
Yeah, I think, I mean, the issue is that if there was one thing that was a problem with this football club, then I'm fairly sure even, Pozzo would have identified it and sorted it out. But as you said, the kind of cultural element of it, it runs so deep that it's far deeper than just getting rid of a couple of players or bringing a couple in. It's just bad, horrible to see as a Watford fan at this particular time, because it feels as though we're at our lowest ebb for, I think, since the Pozzos took over. Since prior to that, and obviously the club's had far worse problems way before my sort of time watching Watford. But it's really hard to fathom. I mean, there's some players there that are decent. I mean, they're all good individual players, every one of them. And I said that at the start of the season. This is a good squad. It's a top 3 squad. But the problems are so much deeper than that. And I think it's just zero team spirit that comes to the end of it. And Luton are better than the sum of their parts, and we're just a bunch of individuals.
Yeah, and Joe, do you agree with that? Chris Wilder seems to think that, doesn't he? He said that we weren't playing as a team and we was playing as individuals. And when he came into this side, it was like, okay, they got a decent side. They shouldn't really be where they are in the table. But after yesterday's game and his comments in the press conference, it kind of alluded to that we was just basically a team of individuals, and we have a lot of so-called good, talented players, but so-called, they're not actually talented players when they're out on the pitch performing.
Yeah, I do agree with that. And it's actually, I'll give you an example. I think João Pedro is a classic example of that at the moment. He is an incredible and talented player. I think everyone will admit that at Watford. He's probably, on paper, I would probably say he's the most talented player we've ever had at Watford when you see what he can do with a football. However, the last few weeks, he's such an individual and not a team player. It's really painful to watch. Yesterday again was another day where every time he got the ball, he doesn't look up ever when he's got the ball. He dribbles with it a lot, and there's just no end product anymore with him. And it's really frustrating between him and Davis and stuff. It's just no communication. And like we say all the time, we've got, as you say there, we've got Loser, who I think's an incredible player. I think Chowdhury's an incredible player. Pedro, I like obviously the centre back and Hoop at the moment. They're all really great players. It's just we need somebody that's. And like you say, I mean, Wilder made his comments yesterday. He's made his bed, isn't he? He's clearly we knew he was probably going to be gone at the season regardless. But now I just think we need a man that's going to come in and gel it all together. But obviously, we'll probably touch on it later on. I just think under the Pozzo era, we're just going to keep going on this merry-go-round, unfortunately. I don't think there's ever going to be a man that's going to come in and gel these players together, because they've never got enough time to do it, because they're just, one, not patient enough, and two, the problem is at the top, and that's the bottom line of it now. I put a tweet out yesterday on Twitter saying, like, unfortunately, there is a massive overhaul that needs to happen at this football club, and it needs to start from the top, unfortunately. Like, you're grateful for everything the Pozzos have done, and whoever's watching this, I don't want to upset them. There's a lot of people every week when they dig out the Pozzos, there's a lot of people that will say they got us to a cup final. Look what they've done with the stadium. We've had 6 great years in the Premier League, promotions. You know, we've had all these amazing times, which of course I'm grateful for. You know, obviously pre that it was tough to watch. However, for the better of this football club, we do need to. They need to go now. Otherwise, it's just going to keep getting worse and worse and worse. And who wants to see us end up in League One? Which, unfortunately, I think if it does keep going like that, it will do.
Yeah, well, there's some worrying figures come out on Twitter with the accounts earlier. I'm not massively into the finance and figures and all that, but from what I can see, it doesn't look great. And we've only got one parachute payment left to come next season. It's not pretty. If Watford don't get promoted next season, I think we're going to struggle financially massively, because Gino won't want to keep putting money into his football club if he can't get Premiership football. He needs to get Premier League football to generate income, and I don't see it happening. Like you say, there's so many good players we've got at the club, but you just can't get a gel out of them. And it's frustrating, where we've potentially had a project manager at the start of the season, Tom, but he just wasn't given the time, and yet he's gone to our arch rivals and he's improved their squad. He's moved them up to 4th in the table. They're level on, well, they're joint 3rd, aren't they? Middlesbrough dropped points yesterday. They're on the same level of points, and they look so much better than us. On paper, maybe we look the better team, but Luton Town are a better football inside as we talk now. They're man to man so much better than Watford. Watford is just so individual, and it's frustrating to see, and it hurts to see as well. But we just jumped too early at the start of the season, Tom.
Yeah, if you watched any of the sort of previous podcasts or anything I've ever appeared on, I was calling for someone like Rob Edwards, you know, way before his appointment. And, you know, we had that. It was, you know, we were sold that vision in the summer, and he came in, and obviously something that's gone. I think something that's gone wrong in the background, you know, during his early weeks as well. And perhaps that kind of sped along his dismissal. But yeah, exactly what you need. You know, it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be the immediate. You know, it might not necessarily have meant an immediate return to the club, but it would have meant stability financially and probably otherwise in the long term. And we've blown that now. You know, no one's going to believe them if they say that they're going to do it again. But that's exactly what we need, and it needs to start from the top. I'm a bit bored of saying this, because it's been obvious to a lot of the fans for ages and ages, and obviously a defeat brings it to the fore. Whereas, you know, if we win a game, then, you know, everything's great and you kind of consider it. But in the context of the season now and the last few seasons, and, you know, looking at Rob Edwards, our manager, what he's doing with our rivals, I really hope that Gino Pozzo looks at that and thinks, you know, this is where I've gone wrong and I need to fix it. But in terms of climbing back, I really don't know how they come back from that. I really don't. It needs to happen again, but, you know, it's like the boy who cried wolf, isn't it? You know, you keep if you say I'm going to change, no one's going to believe you if you keep reverting to your old habits. But yeah, that's clearly what's going to change. And I think, you know, next season we're going to have a lot of. I think there's going to be financial problems. I think they're going to come out. We're going to have a big. You know, we're not going to be able to buy our way out of it. So it's going to be important that everyone in the club is together. Whether that's, you know, the manager has a clear idea of the player that he wants. We need an identity as a club. We keep flip-flopping from different managers, and the fans aren't really kind of listened to. I don't know. I remain in hope because, as I said at the start of the pods, this football club has had far worse problems than they currently have. We've been in administration not too long ago, so I remain hopeful. And I think Pozzo is invested in the club. We haven't got an owner that's disappears and we never see him. So I really hope that he can change his ways and remain hopeful for that, rather than getting a new, hopeful of a new owner who could be anyone. And a lot of the new owners that come in are just pure money men that are out to skim a bit off the top and stuff. But yeah, hopefully, got to be hopeful, I think.
Yeah, and Joe, where do you think Watford go from here? Obviously, we've stopped talking about the Luton game because that's just a small little piece of Watford's story this season. It's the whole season overall, isn't it? I think the start of the season was meant to maybe be a rebuild. We've appointed Rob Edwards, given him 11 games, got rid of him. Slaven Bilic was appointed, we've got rid of him. Chris Wilder's until the end of the season. Where do Watford go from here? We're obviously not going to get promoted this season. We're not going to make the playoffs. What needs to change?
Well, I mean, we again. I mean, I think we've just got. I'll be honest. I've got to say the owners. I mean, it's not gonna. Things aren't gonna change unless they change. I think because I think it's clearly evident now at this point that they're not going to change their ways. Like they're not. They, as Tom just said. They got Edwards in. We believed them. We believed that Edwards was the man that was going to come in. That they were going to give time to change things. And then obviously they done the dirty on him and they got rid of him, and it's painful. And as much as it's horrible to see him doing well with Luton, and it was painful. Yes, I was part of one of the group that were chanting things about him yesterday. Obviously, we got caught up in the moment yesterday. But the bottom line of it is, I'm pleased for him, and I'm pleased. And like you said, I hope Gino Pozzo is looking at it, and it's a hard pill for him to swallow, because he can see that he is a good manager. He is ready for this level, and with next to no, he's obviously he's not really got as much money and probably as much resource as he had at Watford. Look where he's got Luton. They're 6 points off second position. They're in with a chance of going up automatically. Yeah. And yesterday, they as you said, they looked like a solid football team. They actually looked like a proper football team. It was like men against boys yesterday. And for us, it was the season regardless. We could sneak into the playoffs and whatever. Still, I mean, we're still 6 points off. There is still that chance. I said yesterday when we were coming out that in '99 under GT, we went on that 6-game winning run that snuck us into the playoffs. On the final, I think it was the final day, we snuck in with a 1-0 win at home to Grimsby, I think it was. But anyway, we snuck into the playoffs then with a run, so it could be done now. So yeah, there is that chance, but for me, it would be a complete waste of money for Watford fans, because I don't think we would be good against any of the sides that are currently in the playoffs. Well, especially Luton or Middlesbrough. I mean, they're head and shoulders above us as teams at the moment. But we know that we've got this forum thing that's meant to be coming up soon, isn't it? Where Gino Pozzo said he was going to attend to answer questions. After yesterday's result, I can guarantee you now that he is thinking no chance, because he will get hammered at that meeting. I think, and I just think he'll just stay well away from it now. And it will just be the same person hiding, won't come out and speak to the fans. We'll get a new manager in the summer. He'll be here for 3 months, and it'll just be the same merry-go-round. And like you said, obviously, if we don't, with
I think we're losing Joe a little bit. if you're listening on Spotify, Joe's actually on a train traveling back to Portsmouth at the moment, so that's why he keeps dropping in and out. So hopefully he'll be back in a minute. But we'll come back to him in a sec. Tom, have you got anything else to maybe add on to what Joe was saying there? He was saying about how Gino Pozzo probably might not attend this meeting in the summer now, after the performance yesterday and with how toxic it's starting to get. Do you agree with Joe that he might maybe see that and be like, oh, this could be a bit too heated for me?
I mean, I don't know. It's difficult to tell what's in his mind. You know, we've never heard from him. You know, I don't know what his voice sounds like. You know, I've read a couple of sort of translated Italian articles, but we've never heard from him. Which, you know, is in his right to do. Doesn't have to, but you know, I feel as though he's got a duty to do that to the supporters. I don't know. I think the meeting in the summer will hopefully be constructive. I don't think that it will be a you know, completely dismantling of him, but I think the people that attend will want answers and they'll want to know what his vision is for the football club, because it just seems so short-termism. You know, whether it's money that dictates it, I don't know, but I remain hopeful that he will attend that and is true to his words, because it's taken a hell of a long time to get that far and to get to the position where he's even considering it. So yeah, fingers crossed. Definitely.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's only going to be good for the football club to get an interview with Gino Pozzo. Like you say, we've waited such a long time for this, and we know that people are working tirelessly behind the scenes to try and put everything in place to get this sorted. And I imagine that we will be contacting loads of supporters groups and getting fans on board, and they'll be putting across the questions that everyone wants answered. So I have hope that the meeting will go ahead and Gino Pozzo will attend, but look, we're not in control of Gino, are we? He does what he likes. If he turns up, he turns up. If he don't, he don't. And I imagine if he don't turn up, it'll be even harder for him to stay at Watford Football Club, because it will get even worse. So hopefully we do get to see him back. Joe's returned now back from his little episode away. Maybe he just went to the toilet quickly on the train. Who knows? But yeah, we were just saying that we were talking about the whole Gino Pozzo situation and about him attending the meeting in the summer, and I just said to Tom, I think if he doesn't attend, I think he'll make it much tougher for himself to stay at Watford after that. He knows that the fans need answers now, and I think it'll be suicide for him if he doesn't. You were saying it was getting a bit toxic yesterday in that away in, Joe. Was any of it being directed at Gino Pozzo at all, or was it just purely being directed at the players?
No, it was purely at the players yesterday. You know, as I said before, you know, I was one of those fans that was down the front. It was that was shouting them at the end. You know, I couldn't believe they even considered coming over and clapping the fans. It just felt like a massive insult yesterday for them to do that, because they didn't put the effort on the pitch. So, you know, why come over and clap it? You know, what are you clapping for? You know, it's just I think Hamza Chowdhury was one person that put his hand up and was like, you know, trying to apologise and sorry, because he could see how bad it was, and the fans were directing a lot of abuse at the players, but nothing was directed at anything above player level. It was just all purely at the players, and I don't think I've ever seen anything like that, to be honest. And I didn't really expect to get involved in it. I'm usually quite level-headed and will stick up for them to a point, but yesterday was just, I think the fact that it was a derby just made it even worse. I've always said as a football fan, if your team turns up and you lose because you put in as much effort as you can and you lose, yesterday there was no effort whatsoever, just nothing.
Yeah, no, I agree. I was obviously watching it at home, and I could hear the Watford fans from when the teams were walking out from the pitch, and you were sounding louder than the Luton fans for the majority of that first half as well. You could hear the passion from you guys, and it just wasn't reflected on the pitch at all from the players. For being in a derby, I expected more from the players. They weren't first to the first balls or the second balls. I kind of wanted someone to make a challenge, like a heavy challenge on a Luton player to try and get a bit of an aggression into the game. It was just a bit limp. There was no real fight there. There was no Watford players showing any fight until like the 94th minute, when it was a bit of a scrap between their Sonbalonga and someone else, and then all the players went flooding in. I wanted that early doors to actually get the players to make sure they was actually up for it, and it just seemed like they didn't really care. That was coming across to me, sitting at home. It looked like they weren't really up for it. They were maybe intimidated a little bit by the Luton players and the occasion, playing at Kenilworth Road as well. They just bottled it yesterday, and it's so frustrating as well. Like we knew going into the game yesterday, Tom, that win yesterday, slimmest chance of getting the playoffs. Anything less than a win, season was done and dusted, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, there were signs of probably a few weeks ago. I mean, you can't be losing to drawing with the bottom of the league team that players haven't been paid yet. Yeah, I mean, well, I said lose. I know it was a draw, but it certainly felt like a loss, and it felt like a season ender, the Wigan game. Yeah, I mean, coming back to that, your comments about the effort and stuff. I mean, I don't think that there was no effort. I mean, you could see from Porteous, Chowdhury, and a couple of others that there was effort in there. But for a derby, you need a bit more grit. You need that extra 2-3% because of the conditions that you're in. It's going to be, it was raucous. It was a very sort of lively atmosphere yesterday, certainly for the first half from the Watford fans and obviously the Luton fans in the second half. But you need that. I think Gino Gattuso would call it, balls, or Dini call it cojones. We were lacking cojones yesterday, I felt, and I think the players just kind of treated it like another game, and yeah, that's why it looked so. It looks so desperate, I think, from our perspective. And Luton were on the front foot, first to every ball, and I think that really highlighted the difference in the how the players treated it. So that was really disappointing from my perspective. And again, like Joe, I'm not one that usually boos or anything like that, but I'd certainly sort of showed my displeasure yesterday, because it wasn't good enough. And I think that's the basic thing that you expect from football fans is 100% commitment. And in a derby you need 102, 103% commitment. It just wasn't that yesterday, and I think that's a reflection of the team spirit and the pride that they've got as a team. Just not there. They're all individuals from my perspective. They're good individuals, but hard work will always beat talent. Where talent doesn't work hard. I think it's that quote. I might have even used that last time I was on, Ben, to be honest.
Probably did. But yeah, looking back at the team yesterday, Tom and Joe, only a couple of players maybe walked out with maybe a tiny bit of credit to their name of effort from my point of view. I thought Porteous, he showed a little bit. I thought Ngakia, I thought he did okay. I felt a bit harsh for him when he got taken off of Ferreira. I thought he was actually trying to do something down that right hand side, and he had that header that just went narrowly wide of the post as well. I don't know why Keenan Davis wasn't on his toes a little bit more to try and get on the end of that. And also I thought coming off the bench, I thought Espria, at least he tried to do something, injected a bit of pace, and he got on the ball and he was trying to get the ball forward. And I think he probably did more than the rest of our midfield yesterday. But Joe, do you reckon that anyone else maybe came out with a little bit of credit yesterday?
I actually thought Cathcart as well. I thought when he switched to the 4-4-2 formation, when he took Ngakia off, brought Ferreira on, and obviously had Sever and Ferreira as the fullbacks. When he put Cathcart in the middle, I thought he played. I don't think he really put a foot wrong, but I don't think he put a foot wrong before that either, to be honest. So yeah, so as you said, Ngakia, I didn't think all game. You could see he was trying bits, but he was struggling in the first half. The second half, he definitely came out, looked a lot more livelier. When the substitution came, I have to say I was a lot, like a lot of fans, I think we were quite surprised that the substitution happened, because he was the only person really for that first 15 minutes that was trying to create anything down that right-hand side. And I thought it would be him and Sarr, because we saw Sarr getting ready as well. but yeah, so Ngakia, as you said, Porteous, Cathcart. Yeah, other than that, there was Keenan Davis was just non-existent. I thought it was just so poor from him. It was tough to watch, wasn't it, Tom? When every time the ball went to Batman was kicking it. Davis wasn't even laying a glove. I just wanted him to do what Deeney used to do and just put an arm in on someone and just say, like, look, I'm here. You're going to struggle this afternoon. He wasn't even jumping for the ball. It was either going over his head and he'd turn around and he'd wave his arms around in displeasure disgust, that it wasn't going straight to him. And Batman was obviously getting frustrated that Davis wasn't doing anything to get the balls when he was putting it upfield. And as a result of that, there just didn't seem to be any plan B, did there? It was just in the first half, that just seemed to be the main thing that they were trying to do, was just go long, wasn't it? There was no let's get the ball under control and try and pass it around and try and get in behind them and stretch them a little bit. It was just none of that.
Yeah, well, talking about Keenan Davis, I think he in the first 30 seconds, I think he went in on one of us Luton centre halves, and he was penalised and a foul was awarded to Luton, and the ref had a word with him early on there. And then after that, he did nothing. I thought he was very quiet after that. He kind of shied away from them. But I don't know if you guys were picking up on it, because it was obviously really noisy in Kenilworth Road yesterday. But when I was watching it on the TV, Chris Wilder was so loud because the gantry was right above the Watford dugout, and you could hear him shouting at the Watford players constantly during that game. And he kept shouting at the centre backs and the wing backs at why they kept passing the ball back to Daniel Batman as well. He was getting frustrated at the ball every time they had the ball. Instead of looking for a yellow shirt, a white and black shirt, they were passing it back to Daniel Batman every single time, and it was frustrating for him. And I don't know, you could tell from the stands there, Tom. Could you see that or tell that it was winding Chris Wilder up?
No, I certainly couldn't. I mean, I was right at the back row, so I couldn't really hear anything that Chris Wilder said. But yeah, I mean, you could see, as Joe said as well, it was just kind of rinse and repeat, wasn't it? It was, start from a goal kick after being, having a spell under pressure where Luton have just sort of narrowly missed. Backman pass it out to one of the defenders, and it would sort of be, they'd be passing between themselves under a bit of pressure. It would eventually go back to Backman, who would be chased down. And then he'd just whack it up to a very isolated Keenan Davis, who would probably lose the header. And if he won it, there was no one else to go, to latch onto it. It was over time and time again, particularly in the second half. That was what happened. And it was so dispiriting to watch. Whether it's Davis or Assombalonga, I do sort of feel a little bit for Davis, because he was so isolated on his own up front against some, very physical defenders. But there was nothing. João Pedro was picking up the ball, deep in his own half out wide, and it was, you're not going to do any damage there. You need to get forward, but he obviously couldn't trust the midfielders to keep hold of the ball, because we were losing the ball so often in order to get the ball higher up the pitch. So it's a whole raft of reasons. But yeah, the game plan, well, what transpired, I'm sure it wasn't the game plan, was effectively pass the ball between the defenders, play it back to Backman under pressure, and then whack it up, and we'll lose it, and then Luton would be on the attack and we'd be on the back foot, and it was horrible to watch, to be honest.
I must say, another player I've missed out who maybe gets a little bit of credit as well was Ken Sema. I thought in that first half on the left-hand side, he was the only one actually trying to get past a player to get into a box, and he did it a couple of times and pulled the ball back, but it was just wasteful from Watford to actually create anything off the back of that. But Joe, what do you feel like this season's just been a massive waste? Obviously, we came down from a Premier League. We thought we was going to rebuild a little bit and then kick on and go again. But do you just feel this season's just been a massive waste now?
I think it has. I actually sort of mentioned something yesterday. I said, we go back probably to the summer when, like you, Ben, I saw you at the Elton John concert, and Elton said, last season was absolutely woeful, and it was really, really bad, and it probably couldn't get any worse. But for me, I don't know if you agree. I don't think it probably has been as bad, because we've won some games. Obviously, the highlight being Luton 4-0 and stuff. But overall, the season has been, I think, just as bad. It hasn't got better. We're 3 managers again in the season, like last season. So it's the same thing, just in a lower division. And I think I saw someone on Twitter say yesterday, it's amazing that in 4 years we've gone from being in the top half of the Premier League and a team that made an FA Cup final to now a bang average Championship club. And it's hard to comprehend that we've gone from that, if I'm being honest. I don't really know how things have ended up like that, because you think back to the squad we had then, and I actually genuinely, I don't know if you guys would agree, but I genuinely thought that squad would remain for a little while. I didn't actually expect it to be decimated like it is now. It's been a very disappointing season, and I'd say until we hear from Gino and what his long-term plans are, I've got no idea where this club's going at the moment.
Yeah, I do tend to agree with you there, mate. But Tom, what do you think? What do you think a rebuild looks like for Watford Football Club in the summer?
God, you know what?
What does a real rebuild look like? What it needs to look like? Sorry.
What it needs to look like is a proper root and branch change. From the top, it looks like the start of last summer. We bring in Rob Edwards or someone similar. A decent young prospect who is up and coming, and they're allowed the opportunity to forge a team and time. That's the most important thing, because I mean there's so many managers that have had kind of parallel experiences where they've gone through a rough spell, and the team's not done well for a period of time, but they've come out the other side. No, I know it's a different level, but you look at someone like Arteta that was right on the verge of the sack at Arsenal. Everyone wanted him out, and he had another pre-season and stuff, and they're flying. Company at Burnley, I don't think they started particularly well. But I don't know whether it's too late for that now, because no one's going to believe him if they do that, if they put their faith in another manager. But as I said, it runs deep, way deeper than that. We haven't got an identity as a club, apart from that club that always sacks managers after 6 or 7 games or whatever it is. So I mean, yeah, they've got to start there, I think, and then basically there's got to be some jeopardy for players. They can't down tools if they don't like how the manager's playing, but because they know he's going to be sacked, and then someone needs to build something. It all needs to come round to I mean, it's very wishful thinking, but this club was built on Graham Taylor, wasn't it? And how we would desperately need for someone like Graham Taylor to be given the time to build something at the club. I know modern football's different, but yeah, I genuinely don't know how they're going to turn this around, though, because keep flip flapping from manager to manager. Players that look good with no discernible style, and we could be in League One. The finances are going to dry up, but yeah, it's such an important summer. That I think to get the supporters on board. What yesterday really showed, I think, was like a team like Luton. They've not got many resources. They've got a pretty average squad, I think you'd say, on paper. They've got a horrible ramshackle stadium, which was properly disgusting yesterday. We're so lucky to have Vicarage Road, but everyone's going in the same direction. That's what we need, and I think they've got a long way to get to that stage.
Exactly. You look at other teams in the division, and you can achieve success on a shoestring budget. Look at like Millwall. Millwall don't spend much money. They're in the playoffs or just outside of the playoffs. Their record transfer signings 1.6 million on that Zach Fleming that we've got this season. So they've not spent millions to be in their position. Same with Luton. They don't go around spending millions of pounds on players as well. And I think that's what Watford have to get right this summer. They have to, and I know it weighs heavily on Ben Manga and Helen Acosta, but they can't be spending much money this summer because there isn't any. There's not much money. Even if we sell lots of players this summer, we won't be able to really invest that because that's going to be there to pay off debts or pay off loans or other loans that we've got on top of other loans. It's just an absolute mess. But we've seen it in this division. Even Coventry, they don't spend much and they're doing well this season as well. So you can get success from not overspending in the division. And that's what Watford's got to get spot on in the summer. They've got to get the recruitment right. You've got to get in the right players. But first of all, you've got to appoint the right manager and then you've got to give them time. There's an argument at the start of the season, Joe, that the right manager was appointed, but he was just never given the time.
Yeah, completely agree. I didn't want Rob Edwards to go, but like many other managers that have been and gone at Watford, I've said that I've not wanted other managers to leave. I didn't want Munoz to get the sack when he got sacked and things. You know, it's just not about what we want, is it? It's about what they want and what makes them happy, and that's what they wanted to do at the time, and we just have to grin and bear it. And obviously, we spend the money and stuff. It's our hard-earned money that we spend going up and down watching them every week and traveling. I don't know where you guys come from, but a lot of us travel. I know other people travel to games, and they don't seem to consider that, do they? And I think that's the hardest thing to take for me, is that they don't actually consider us and what we want as a fan base anymore. You know, they gave us what we wanted. It just kind of annoyed me a little bit, that Edward sacking, because obviously Scott came out and said, didn't he, that he would be given time. And Gino just went over his head, didn't he, and made him look like an idiot and sacked him in the end. And yeah, like I say, I, as much as yesterday we were giving him stick, I do wish him all the best. And if they get promoted, then fair play to him. You know, we've lost a great manager there for me. He's a good egg, and it's one that it'll probably take us a long time to get over if he does end up getting promoted with Luton, I think. But you know, just going into like next season, like I do believe Wilder isn't going to be the man next year, but I was looking around yesterday and you think, like, who is the person that is actually going to come in and manage us next year? And that is worrying as well, because I don't think Wilder, even if they offered it to him, I think Wilder would be like, no thanks. And who else is there? He's just going to be some other foreign unknown person that's like won the Estonian league or something, or the Romanian league. And yeah, it's tough, isn't it? It really is at the moment, just to think where we're going to be in come August. Like, who's going to be in charge? What players are going to be here? Because obviously we know Sal's not going to be here. João Pedro, for me, 100% is not going to be here now either. I think someone in the Prem, or as we've heard rumours, Fabrizio Romano's been posting a little bit here and there that AC Milan are interested in him. So it's likely that he'll either go to the Premier League or Serie A. And then I don't really think too many others, like big-ish players, will leave at the moment. But I was kind of looking around yesterday and I thought, obviously, I don't think Britt will be here, unfortunately. I don't think he's really set the world alight. Cabaselli, it's another one I think will probably be gone as well. I don't think he'll stick around because he's not really got much game time. And I don't know, we've probably seen that he's been in Belgium quite a bit, isn't he? Here and there. So he might go back to Belgium and play some football. And then you've just got other players like Ferreira. He's not really done much. I think he's come in, he got injured, but I don't think he'll be here in the summer either. Obviously, Kamara's going back to Udinese. Chowdhury, we've not really got the money, unfortunately, now, I don't think, based on the figures yesterday to sign him, which is, you know, we were talking, and I know you guys, you and Mike talked about it the other week about how much would it cost maybe to get him in and sign him on a permanent, but it doesn't really matter now. I just don't think there's the money there, and I don't think there'll be the want to sign him, and it'll be the same with Davis. They'll say they'll send him back, so we'll be Britt and Davis down, so we need to get strikers in, and it's like, where do we go? Where do we go?
And the third striker being Henrik Arojo, who I don't think he was even on the bench yesterday, was he? So that's 3 strikers that you need. But we got Vacuum Bio out on loan. We maybe come in, be our number 9 next season. I know that will please Mike because he hated that Raymond I was given the number 9 shirt. So maybe he might be a bit pleased with Bio getting the number 9 shirt next season. But yeah, no, I see where you're going with this, Joe. There's lots of loan players in this team where we'll need to replace them, and then we've got some big-ish players that haven't performed this season, but they'll be on the move as well. I'll maybe throw in Ramluza into that mix as well, where I think he might go at the end of the season. And then I'm looking at the side as well. I'm like, Craig Cathcart's out of contract at the end of the season. Fantastic servant, but I don't think I'd renew his contract. I think if you're looking to rebuild, you've got to rebuild fully. And I think Craig Cathcart letting go, build a pairing of Hoot and Porteous. That's the future now. And I think since Craig came back in, I think it's unsettled the back line a little bit because we saw how good Porteous and Hoop was, but then it was a change of formation once Chris Wilder came back in, wasn't it? He liked to play that back 3, and I just think it's unsettled the partnership a little bit by putting someone in the middle. And then I'm looking maybe Ken will stick around next season, Ngaki will stick around. But then the midfield options we're bare, aren't we? If Chowdhury goes back, Loser goes, what we left with Kayembe, Espria, who's very young still. Tom Cleverley's been offered a new contract, but he's out of contract at the end of the season. I don't think I'd offer him a new contract. Again, get rid of him and just build again. But Tom, what do you reckon for the end of the season with the players being shipped out?
I don't know. I mean, there's an argument for most of them to stay or go. I think the most important thing is where we're going moving forward. For a player and to pick out one of those names, Craig Cathcart, I'd probably keep him for a bit of championship experience because I think that's one thing that we've been lacking this year. I know he's obviously spent a lot of time in the Premier League with us, but I'd keep him. Probably not on big wages, but I think we need an identity. What system are we playing? What tactics? If we keep sort of flip-flapping from 4-4-2 to 3-5-2 to wing backs, full backs, there's no player who's going to thrive in that environment. So we just need more certainty at manager level, I think, because as we've all said tonight, we've got a very talented squad of individuals, but we need a way for them to progress and to play and to build a team spirit. If we know we're going to play in one particular way for the whole season, or for at least a prolonged period of time, then players can adapt to that. But if they're being asked to do different things from week to week, system to system, it's not going to work. So I think there's an argument for certain players to come and go. But for such a talented squad, we're so badly coached because they're required to change all the time. The thing that really sort of stuns me about João Pedro is how he's developed, because he's really gone against the grain with that, and he's done so well. He's had so many managers with different styles. How can anyone, in your jobs, if your bosses keep changing and your job description keeps changing, how are you going to grow as a person and give your all? You're just not. So I think João Pedro really stands out there. Just need that identity, and where that's going to come from at this stage, it's very difficult to see, but it's not not completely out of the question. It just needs to happen over the summer, and certain people need to look in the mirror, really, starting with Gino Pozzo for me.
Yeah, well, it's going to be an interesting summer at Watford Football Club, isn't it? And I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you, boys, so much for joining me tonight. Joe, thank you for your debut on the Voices of the Vic. You did a sterling job. Even though we lost you a couple of times, I'm sure we'll get you back on at some point. Tom, thank you as well for coming on as well. You got a fanzine out at the moment, haven't you, Tom?
Have, yeah. I've got one here. It's of the two centre backs. So this one is. I know people probably aren't that enthusiastic about getting to the Vic, but I think the fanzine and the life that you have around what happens in that 90 minutes is so important. So, I mean, this issue is, all proceeds are going to a fantastic charity, which helps a lot of people, including a lot of Watford fans and people in Hertfordshire. So, yeah, if people can buy a copy of that. It's got. I've tried to keep it very positive. I've got a big section on Dini Day. So yeah, I think that's worth the money alone. So yeah, come and see me. I'll be in a normal place. As the weather gets nice, it gets a bit warmer as well. It'll be a bit more pleasant to sell people and meet people. But yeah, come and say hello. And I've also planning to do one more, which will be on sale for the Stoke game, the last game of the season only, and online. So if anyone wants to have a say, write anything, put anything on paper, or even yourself, Ben, you recorded contribution which I transcribed. So I'm more than happy if people aren't confident writing to just take a voice note or something, and I'll put I'll draft it as well as I can, and hopefully something to be proud of for them.
Yeah, no, I really appreciated that, mate. I did a double pager in the fanzine this week on my take of Beanie Day. So I sent over to Tom in about 5-6 different videos, and bless him, he had to put it all together and he wrote it all up for me. So yeah, if you struggle with putting words down on paper as well, just send Tom some voice notes or something, or a video of yourself, and he'll write it all up for you. But yeah, thank you, boys, for joining me tonight. We'll wrap it up there, and I don't know when I'll be back next. We've got Huddersfield Friday, isn't it? I don't even know if I'm going to the game or not. I really need to try and pick myself up after yesterday's defeat. But I'm definitely going to Coventry away, and I'll be doing a matchday vlog as well. So I'll probably be definitely doing a Voices of the Vic review for that one. But yeah, keep an eye out for the matchday vlog as well. But yeah, stay safe, everyone, and come on, you Horns.